Audit. What the deuce is audit? A junior executive in a brokerage firm is terrified of the upcoming SEBI audit. A senior executive in a firm exporting its products to a European country is praying that her quality audit should go smoothly, with not too many non-compliances reported. A leader in a security services firm is apprehensive about the security audit to be done by a big client company, lest it lead to loss of business. An insurance company legal executive is worried about a compliance audit that IRDAI has ordered, as such audits have had a record of turning up non-compliances of their rules and regulation by the tons. So many avatars of audit. One'd almost feel that the whole world was going crazy about some audit or another. But the fact is that the majority of interested or puzzled people, even those who may have to deal with or face one audit or another as part of their job, may at best have only a hazy idea about what an audit is. If asked, perhaps most of them would try to explain audit in terms of the specific kind of audit they may have been exposed to, as one of the audits we just described. But wouldn't this be like the tale of four blindfolded persons describing an elephant in terms of whichever body part of the elephant they touched, without getting any closer to making out what exactly an elephant is? Without understanding the basic purpose and holistic concept of audit itself, we may start getting a bit closer to a widely relevant meaning of audit if we ask a finance person, not the least because many would have had a subject dealing with audit during their studies. To a question on what audit is, many of them would perhaps reply that audit is a systematic examination of the accounting records of an enterprise for a specific period, by qualified professionals adhering to guidelines established by the government or regulatory authorities or professional bodies like the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, with the purpose of certifying the balance sheet to be a true and correct reflection of the state of affairs of the enterprise in financial terms. Not bad, but think about it a moment. How would you reconcile the above description of audit with the varying hues and complexions of audit we described earlier? A SEBI audit, a quality audit, a security audit, an IRDAI audit, and so on. Doesn't this definition of audit seem too closely focused on numbers and financial aspects like balance sheet? Well, perhaps it's the definition which is deficient in some way. Maybe we can just change the accounting records, part of the definition, to relevant records and information, so that it covers a wide range of domains and functions. And regarding the purpose of certifying balance sheet, etc., that's perhaps best left to be defined depending on context. The purpose could be to validate compliance with SEBI regulations for brokers, with quality standards prescribed in the importing European country, with security requirements and standards adopted by the client company, with IRDAI regulations for insurers, and so on. Seems like now we're getting a bit closer to the topic of this discussion: internal audit. Incidentally, in a course video on finance that I watched recently, put out by one of the venerable IITs, the trainer said that the difference between internal and external audit is that internal audit is done by employees of the company, while external audit is done by qualified independent professionals, and thereby hangs a tail. It appears that the concept of internal audit may have evolved as a contrast to the external audit that was already in vogue before then. Seems that those who understand what an audit is to an extent, those mainly finance persons, intuitively guess it to mean external audit, of the financial audit kind we discussed earlier, done by a CA firm to certify the annual balance sheet, and internal audit, to make its space under the sun, had to somehow distinguish itself from external audit by calling itself internal. But this hides important aspects of the nature of internal audit. For one, the remit of internal audit is much wider than external or balance sheet audit. Note that the various types of audit we referred to earlier, like SEBI audit or quality audit or security audit or IRDAI audit, can be described as audits targeted to a specific function, domain, or type of enterprise. None of the areas is finance-focused. But interestingly, the scope of any of these types of audit can be covered as part of the internal audit of the relevant enterprises, when it's done on the initiative of the enterprise itself. Hence, internal. Thus, the total scope of internal audit can, and should, cover all aspects of functioning of an enterprise, not limited to financial aspects. It can typically include audit of procurement and commercial functions, sales and marketing, payroll and HR. Yes, HR too. Isn't that sweet revenge? Quality, operations and admin, IT, information technology, not just income tax, legal, the works. Beyond the above generic areas, which are perhaps part of internal audit of any kind of enterprise, there are usually quite a few audit areas which are included in the internal audit universe. Yes, that's what internal auditors grandly call the scope areas sought to be covered in their annual internal audit plan for specific types of enterprises. These could include, for instance, cargo and passenger terminal operations for an airport, ER/OT and pharmacy for a hospital, claim settlement function for an insurance company, plant operations for a manufacturing company, and so on and so forth. One feature differentiating internal audit from external or balance sheet audit is indeed that it caters to an internal clientele, or the management of the enterprise, adopting a consultative approach to reviewing the operations of the various functions in scope, in collaboration with those who actually carry out those functions, while of course providing a large degree of assurance on the state of the scoped areas. As for the internal versus external debate, even internal audit can be carried out by external resources, confusing what? For instance, by independent accounting firms, or, typically, firms specializing in internal audit and the aligned area of risk assurance. However, to balance out the close connection with internal stakeholders, to ensure that internal audit's voice and findings are not drowned out amidst holy talks of higher organizational priorities, internal audit is also supposed to act in an independent manner. How much it does so, or is allowed to, is a topic for another day. Typically, for mid to large-sized enterprises, such independence is sought to be ensured by internal audit reporting its findings to a quasi-independent body like the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors, or to the board itself. This is part of the governance structure of the enterprise. And then there's the aspect of risk orientation. Internal audit carries out its work of scoping out audit areas, reviewing the scoped areas and functions, and reporting its findings, while always keeping in view the risks which may potentially affect, positively or negatively, the achievement of the enterprise's stated objectives. Risk management, of course, is a vast topic in itself, fit for a full course, and indeed taught as a distinct discipline at many prominent educational institutions. We'd probably be able to cover risk only tangentially in our discussions. And finally, the purpose of internal audit is improvement in the enterprise's operations, in terms of an improved process and control environment, more on that later, or through any of the various means and options available. So now that we've laid out in some detail the various components which distinguish internal audit from any other area of human enterprise, and indeed from any other kind of audit, we can make an attempt to understand a comprehensive definition of internal audit. This one is the standard definition by IIA, the Global Institute of Internal Auditors, and, I promise, this is one of the very few times when I intend to fall back on standards of any kind, keeping the discussion focused on what really happens on the ground rather than how some things have been laid down by various bodies, etc. Internal auditing is an independent, objective, assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance processes. I've spent more than 2 decades, or a bit more than half my working life, in the exciting field of internal audit. I've had the opportunity to visit a number of countries across 3 continents, meet and work with and alongside colleagues from so many different regions and cultures, and lead internal audits of a wide range of organizations, both for profit and nonprofit, active in different domains like manufacturing, infrastructure, healthcare, retail, etc. But believe me, at the beginning of my fascinating journey in the field of internal audit, I was as mystified about what internal audit is as anyone would be. I've learned about this exciting field of internal audit more by doing rather than by studying standards and definitions, though that becomes a necessary part of our education as we go along. And I'm still learning, the latest being how to use generative AI for internal audit work, something I hope to discuss going forward. And why do I call internal audit, which is considered a drab field, even by some of those who should know better, an exciting field? Well, tell me, which other area of work affords us to look deeply into such a wide range of functions and activities across the length and breadth of an enterprise, gaining invaluable exposure to a vast range of business functions? Indeed, this is one reason why many organizations have made a stint in internal audit an essential requirement of progressing up the corporate ladder. And well, to be honest, the opportunities to travel and see new places and people, all as part of work of course, are not something to be overlooked either. So if you're looking forward to explore the contours of this exciting field of internal audit, either out of curiosity, and, I promise, in a fun and interesting manner rather than dry pedagogical, or to further your career prospects, dive right in.